Have you ever seen something so horrifying that you know deep down it will replay in your dreams forever? Some time ago when I was just a boy, I had one dream: to finally meet the real Santa Claus. That December, I had been completely obsessed with photography and video, and had been recording and taking pictures of everything in sight. Yes, I had taken pictures of everything: Christmas trees, neighborhood puppies, even a batch of burnt gingerbread cookies my mother had taught me how to bake earlier in the week. I was a pretty straight-laced kid, and I was the last kid I knew to still believe in Santa. "Don't tell me you still believe that," my friend Chris had said, to which I replied nothing. I was a stubborn little boy, and I knew for a fact that if I truly just believed enough, that I would indeed see something amazing after the clock struck midnight and became Christmas Day. I was right. Sort of. If you would like to continue living in blissful ignorance, this is where you should stop listening. Maybe it's better if you don't know the truth. As I said, carrying around a camera was my thing, Ron Howard style. That year on Christmas Eve, I had planned to be the first child on Earth to get concrete proof of Santa's existence. In my young mind, I had seen newspapers and news channels around the globe showing my evidence. They would interview me, the little boy who had proven everyone wrong, and maybe then people would finally start to believe. That evening, my mother and father took turns tucking me into bed before shutting off the lights and heading back to their room. They had no idea what I had planned. After hearing their door close gently with a click, I headed downstairs to scout the living room. Where could I place the camera to give me the absolute best chance to get him on video? As the hours passed uneventfully, I moved the camera around to record various locations: the fireplace, the outside window, the kitchen where I had placed the poorly made gingerbread cookies. Don't judge me, I had tried my best. Time continued to pass, and it wasn't until I first heard the clock strike midnight that something unexpected happened. I heard the basement door open slowly. That was odd. I thought Santa was supposed to come from the chimney. Part of me wanted to rush over and greet him, but I found another larger part of myself telling me to hide and wait to see what happened next. I chose my parents' new couch in the corner of the room as my hiding spot, running behind and peeking ever so slightly around its corner and towards the Christmas tree. Nothing happened for a few moments, and I was beginning to wonder if I had imagined the sound of the basement door creaking open altogether. And then I heard the whistling. But it wasn't jingle bells or anything like that. No, it wasn't cheerful, and it certainly didn't contain the holiday spirit. The snow had started falling more steadily outside, and for some reason that odd whistling had suddenly made me realize how completely isolated the three of us were out here. My father had bought the small cabin some time ago, the nearest neighbor being half a mile or more away. It seemed even farther in a blizzard. This was my first, and I had been very excited about being snowed in for a few days. That was until the thought occurred to me of being snowed in with something else. Something that had no business being there. The wind began to push against our secluded home as well, seeming to hit all sides at once. Wow, my parents could sleep through anything, it seemed. My eyes pulled away from the chaotic weather outside my home and back towards the basement door. And then I saw him, or should I say it, coming slowly closer. The figure was cloaked and seemed to float just above the living room floor. Did I think about screaming? Yes, I did. Looking back though, I'll give myself credit. I stayed calm. And perhaps this still was Santa after all. I decided to wait and see what happened. It seemed that the tall figure hadn't seen me peeking out from behind the couch, because it just kept on floating towards the Christmas tree and fireplace. Whatever it was, it began to whistle again, and this time I was able to identify the tune. Silent Night. The melody was off rhythm and was the only time in my life that hearing a song made me feel uneasy. Very uneasy. I realize how insane this next part is going to sound if we haven't gotten there already. But as I watched the tall figure near the Christmas tree, I could hear it begin to sniff deeply. The tree swayed and shook against the force of the creature's nostrils, and then it began to speak.
"Come out, little boy."
He had seen me. There would be no hiding anymore. Taking a deep breath, I summoned the courage to stand.
"Come closer."
I took a small step.
"Closer."
The snake-like voice continued. I heeded its words, walking forward until the tall figure stood directly in front of me. I felt small in its shadow, smaller than I had ever felt. "Are you him?" The creature made a soft, almost inaudible noise. Perhaps it was laughter, and then pulled the cloak away to reveal itself. I fainted. When I came to, the creature was still standing where it had been, a soft grin plastered to its face.
"You aren't the first one that's fainted at the sight of me. You're lucky I didn't eat you."
"Eat me?" I stammered.
"Yes, but that would be only fair. It's very offensive to faint at the sight of someone you know."
I said nothing, only staring up at the creature. Though I've tried to forget its form with time, I can still remember it clearly. It was thin, terribly thin, and its face was beyond imagining. Though its teeth were clearly visible, I could see no eyes, and what looked like thorns protruded from the crest of its head. Branches extended from the thing's body in all directions, and it dragged what looked like a sack behind it.
To answer your question, no, I'm not Santa Claus.
The creature knelt down near me, and I could feel its icy breath push against my eyes and face.
But I know him.
You do? The creature nodded.
Of course. He's my brother.
The news that this terrifying monster was the brother of Santa took a long time for my childhood brain to process, at the end of which I was probably even more confused than before. How? The creature paused.
Well, normally I don't share such things, but I admire your courage. And it's been a long while since I've spoken with anyone, even a boy.
It smiled, showing its sharp teeth, and then continued.
For every good act in this world, there is an evil one. For every kind gift, there must be an unkind. I bring balance to the good my brother spreads. I bring
evil, I whispered, finishing his words. The creature nodded as if pleased.
You are a smart little boy. So far, I'm glad I haven't eaten you.
My mind churned again. So what evil have you brought us? There was a long silence before it replied.
You are very wise. Are you sure you want to know?
I nodded, and it smiled back.
Very well. Though my gifts will not take effect on this day, their influence will be felt through the next year and beyond.
It pulled out the sack that followed closely behind and set it on the floor before me. There was only one gift inside, which upon a closer look had both my mother and father's names written neatly on a dark card that sat on top of the box.
Open if you dare,
it whispered. As I knelt down next to the presents, the room seemed to grow colder, the wind swirling violently now just outside the foggy glass. The lights flickered on and off as I began to unwrap the small box. I laid the wrapping paper down neatly, piece by piece, on top of the tree's red and white Christmas skirt. Looking up at the creature, I said 2 words. I'm afraid. Its long, thin arm reached out towards me then, finally settling on my closest shoulder. Though I still could not see the creature's eyes, it seemed to gaze at me nonetheless. It seemed to be thinking as it cocked its head from one side to the other.
Look upon my face, little child. I have been deformed and misshapen by the evils that are mine to bear. I cannot change my form any more than you can change the fate of your family. All I can do is bear it.
Though still afraid, I was suddenly overcome with a great sympathy for the creature. I'm sorry. It seemed taken aback for a moment, before replying.
Don't be fooled, little child. I am not fully innocent.
The box before me broke open then, revealing a blinding shine of dark purple, the color of a vibrant spring's first bloom. It bathed the room in its deep shades, as the box pulsated in front of my eyes. I couldn't help it. I looked deep into the calling purple, into worlds unseen. I saw the creatures of my nightmares, monstrous, malevolent beings, some as tall as the sky above. But worst of all, I saw my parents. It was a rainy winter day as my father drove home from work, his briefcase on the passenger seat, and a worried look in his eyes as he squinted through the windshield. The rain came down in sheets. No, Dad. He couldn't see the large semi that had gently pulled beside him. It drifted closer into his lane. And then, "Stop, I don't want to see." But it was too late. The truck overtaking my father and pushing his car into the bridge's guardrail. I wish I could say he didn't suffer. A violent wave of purple as my eyes were taken elsewhere. A hospital. No, please. It was my mother, receiving the cancer diagnosis and lying alone in the hospital bed. She stared out into the darkness. I can't take this, I told the creature. And maybe I imagined it, but to this day I think it gave a small look of pity. It knelt closer.
She'll live.
Why did you show me this? I asked. The basement door opened again with a creak, and the creature fell backwards to the floor, striking its head and letting out a sigh. I realized then that as terrifying as this thing was, there was still one that even it must answer to.
I must go,
it whispered, pulling the cloak over its bony head and concealing its form once more. I watched as it floated back towards the basement steps, and then said the words I will always remember.
Be afraid for what is to come, child. But do not let it consume you, as it has me.
I watched its figure begin to fade away into the darkness, the last proof of its existence being the soft words that carried their way through the air and into my ears.
For only in death and suffering will you find life.